the gold standard, and that was actually the 1933 Emergency Banking Act by the great and notorious leftist FDR, okay, when he stole all the gold from the American people, and henceforth American currency would be redeemable into nothing. The government actually confiscated Americans' holdings of monetary gold, nullified even private contracts that called for payment for a good or service in gold, and declared the dollar no longer redeemable into gold by American citizens, but made allowances for redemption by foreign central banks at $35 an ounce, a devaluation of the dollar from its previous ratio of $20.67 an ounce. Now, folks, you got to understand something here. In other words, that act made it illegal for you and I as American citizens to own gold. We had to turn in our gold certificates for, or our gold coin, $20 gold coin, or gold coin for $20 Federal Reserve notes, really is what it was. That's what we had to change it in for, okay? And then they outlawed it. We couldn't get any more gold, but yet the foreign banks could still hand in their gold certificates for $35 an ounce. Okay?
Instant theft.
So now what they did was, they not only did they steal all the gold from us, but now they devalued the dollars they were giving us by charging more from the foreigners. That brought down our value, okay? That's what Ron Paul's saying here. And it gets a little complicated, but you got to sit down, folks, and figure this out for yourself. You know, we can't explain everything on here. You're going to have to research this for yourself, but it's all, you now have the internet. So my God, it's so simple to do it, okay? And I'm going to get back to Ron's reading here, or back to his paragraph here, and here's what it says. And even this tenuous link to gold was severed in 1971 when Richard Nixon declared that within a year, at the $35 exchange, so think about this, in 1971 they were still exchanging for $35. Still. Now we already knew what happened to our Federal Reserve notes by then. Man, they were so inflationary it wasn't funny.
You're going to have to explain inflation too.
Yeah, I will.
Most people don't understand
I'll explain that illusion, boy, because let me tell you, I wrote a paper actually called The Great Illusion, and it talks about, I talk about inflation there. But let's see here. We would not have an ounce of gold remaining. Other governments had begun to realize that the dollar, which was being massively inflated, was losing its value, and more were demanding gold in exchange for dollars. At that point, Nixon officially closed the gold window so that not even foreign central banks could get gold for dollars. In so doing, he cut the dollar's last lingering tie to gold, which doesn't bother me one bit because only the foreign bankers were the only ones taking, getting the benefit. Can you imagine that? Here we are, supposedly free Americans, and our government is dealing with foreign banks, giving them gold in exchange for gold certificates, and we are getting worthless fiat paper notes. I mean, how absurd is that? I mean, that is, I mean, I asked, let's think about this. Would you take a gun and blow off your own foot for no reason whatsoever? Because that's basically what we did. And then we shot the other foot off. And then we shot the other hand off. And then we only had one hand left. So what we did was we took a saw and cut our leg off. And then we cut the other leg off. That's what we're doing to ourselves, basically, financially in this country. We, the people, are supposed to be in control of our government. We're supposed to elect people to go represent us. That's what a representative means. Go look up the definition of representative. And yet, how many of us would do that to ourselves? Would we actually go to our own homes tonight, take every bit of money we have in our wallet or our purse, and put it in a pile and light it on fire? Well, that's basically what we've allowed our government to do. Now, we're going to talk about inflation. This is really, I love this, because inflation, hyperinflation. We can go to Germany back in pre-Hitler days, just before Hitler. Exactly.
Weimar Republic.
That's why, the Weimar Republic. And they had super hyperinflation because of what they did. They did basically the same thing the Federal Reserve is doing right now by printing money, dumping it by the trillions of dollars onto the American market through the stimulus packages, through the bailouts for all these banks. And by the way, I pulled up a lot of information on the internet I'm going to lead you folks to, so you can go do your own research here and just see exactly how extensive this goes. But I'm telling you, it goes into the high trillions.
How about financing the debt by printing money out of thin air to finance the debt? It's called monetization, monetizing the debt.
Now, let's talk about a mortgage, though. We're gonna get to inflation
Well,
in a
yeah.
minute. But let's talk about how this works here, about the fractional banking system, how it really works. And folks, if I make a mistake here, you guys correct me, or if somebody's on the line, you can call in at 561-228-4020, or you can ask a question in the chat room. You can and call us up and correct us. There's a lot of smart, savvy people out there that probably know a heck of a lot more than I do and what we know and hear about it. But at least we're in here discussing it. At least we're in here and we're exposing it, right, Mark?
Absolutely.
I mean, we're not sitting at home, watching a football game tonight. We're trying to save our doggone country here. That's what we're trying to do. Now, the way our fractional reserve banking works here is, I'm going to put it in very simple terms. A bank is only required to hold 10% on deposit in relation to how much money they lend out. In other words, if they have 100,000 Federal Reserve notes on deposit, they can loan out $1 million. Okay? Where does that other 900,000, if they have 100,000 on hand, 1 million minus 100,000 equals 900,000. Where does that 900,000 come from? That they're loaning out in mortgages, let's say.
Out of thin air.
Yeah.
That's right. Folks, it's just created out of thin air. It's actually, when you go and you pull a mortgage on your home, I don't think that you walk out of the bank with a bag of money. In fact, I don't think that the builder who built your home, you ask him to show up at the bank and you hand him over, 350,000 Federal Reserve notes right on the spot. That's not how it works. It's a click of a button. It's a electronic transaction these days. It used to be just a check or a draft or whatever, but now it's just a click of a button. Okay, it's transferred. It's like transferring credits. It comes out of thin air. It comes out of nothing. Now that alone right there, now you think about this. Those are the banks that are loaning you, but the real culprit here, the core of the culprit in America is the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, the Fed, which we know as the Fed. They're the ones that actually loan money to the Federal Reserve, the 10 regions that have Federal Reserve banks in those regions,
Right.
and then they loan to the local banks in their regions.
Right.
Okay? And where does all this come from? It comes from the Federal Reserve. They go to the government and the government says, okay, since what Nixon did in 1971 was we're no longer backed by the gold standard. Now our government can borrow as much as they want to, anytime they want to, because all they have to do basically is print the money up. Now, it's like a counterfeiter.
I was just going to say that. It's
Does
counterfeiting.
Does a counterfeiter
counterfeit.
have any kind of conscience
No.
about how much money he's going to print up? In fact, he could care less. He's going to print as much as he can get away with.
It's a counterfeit
It's
system.
a counterfeit scheme.
That's it.
And so what they do is they go, okay, now the congressmen, they're salivating. They're going, okay, you mean I could get this bridge built in my district, and I can look like a hero, and I can stay in Congress for 40 years because I'm a hero, like Ted Kennedy. Look at Ted Kennedy. They painted him as a hero. And the guy actually drove off a bridge and killed a young woman named Mary Jo Compechny. And he didn't even report it until the next day when he was forced to, folks. This is the kind of criminals we have in Congress. And here he is, Ted Kennedy's such a great guy because he wants national health care for everyone.
He broke his oath. Simple as that. He didn't follow the Constitution.
No, he did not follow the Constitution.
And then he was even hailed by Bush as a great senator
Yeah.
when No Child Left Behind was passed.
That's right.
And promoted by Bush.
By George
There's the
Bush.
false left-right paradigm right there
That's right.
broken.
That's right. But see, we got to escape the matrix, right? You
right.
won't understand any of this unless you're willing to look in the mirror and say, what do I stand for? What am I doing here? The Federal Reserve is a scam on America. I'm going to tell you right now, straight out, I think that what Ron Paul is doing with H.R. 1207 is phenomenal because what he's doing is he's trying to wake up people. But I'm going to tell you what we really need to do. We need to end the Federal Reserve System. We need to go back to constitutional lawful money, and we need to arrest and prosecute every single person that's in the Federal Reserve, that's a shareholder of the Federal Reserve, that has supported the Federal Reserve, that's perpetuated the lie. And we need to arrest them, we need to put them on trial, and if they're found guilty for treason, then we need to take them out back and hang them. That's what we need to do. Because this is, what they've done in America, folks, is they have enslaved us for years and years to come if we don't break free from this.
Generation.